Walking is one of the simplest and most accessible forms of exercise, yet its benefits extend far beyond physical health. From boosting mental clarity and emotional well-being to fostering creativity and social connections, a regular walking routine can transform multiple aspects of life. What makes walking such a powerful habit, and how can people incorporate it into their daily lives for maximum impact? As a part of this series, I had the pleasure of interviewing Becca Benning. Becking is a behavioral change and functional medicine specialist, also known as a functional health coach. She's also an autoimmune protocol certified coach. Having left the teaching profession following a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, she specializes in supporting educators and autoimmune folks to get their spark back by bringing real self-care into their day-to-day lives, one realistic step at a time. Becca has been named as one of the top 100 inspiring female entrepreneurs in the United Kingdom for 2025. You can find her online at www.beccabenning.com. Becca, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Just fine. I would say morning, except it's late afternoon for you. So,
It is.
yeah. um, I did a little research before we talked, and I'm kind of familiar with your story. But could you take a few minutes and tell people your story? It's incredibly interesting and incredibly powerful.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll do the condensed version. Um, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in my mid-30s, so that was in 2012. So it was after a lot of stuff had gone on in my childhood. I would never been entirely what anybody would describe as well. Um, so it was the sort of culmination of a lot of stuff when I finally got to the point where it's like, oh, this is what's going on. And it wasn't really a great shock. Um, and at the time, I was working in education, so I was a primary school teacher, and I was very conscious that the stress of working in that environment, just the sort of relentless nature of the job and the kind of lack of bandwidth that I had to really take care of myself was probably not going to work. So I left my job, and I hoped for a little while that that was going to be fine. That would get me far enough. But I was kind of still having MS relapses, they're called. So it's when you have a kind of flare of symptoms, and then the ideal is that they go away in between. But I was essentially in a situation where my neurologist said to me 4 years after my diagnosis, when I was just about to turn 40, he said that I was on a what he called a trajectory of increasing disability because I wasn't fully recovering between relapses. And that was the key because I thought I don't really want that on a t-shirt. So
Uh,
I'm gonna
no, you
I'm
do
gonna have
not.
a think about what I can do alongside medical help. And I mean, actually, as it happens, I haven't needed any of the big guns drugs for my MS so far. I do take medications for some of my other conditions because I have various other autoimmune bits and pieces and other chronic stuff going on, but I haven't needed those kind of heavy drugs because what I decided to do was to really look at what I could experiment with that was within my own control. So things about my diet and my lifestyle and the sort of day-to-day choices that I was making, and how far could I elevate my baseline with those things, and then kind of make decisions about what I needed to do about medication and stuff. So, I quite quickly realized that all of that stuff was massively impactful for me. And so I'm now at a situation where I'm nearly 50 and I'm stronger than I was when I was in my 20s. And I'm in probably the best health I've ever been in, even though I can't say that my MS is gone. I've just actually finished having the worst flare of symptoms that I've had in quite a long time, which was down to just getting a respiratory infection, which is not because I did anything wrong. It's something that I had no control over, and it kicked off some vertigo, which is quite difficult to manage. Um, but I'm absolutely confident that I weathered it a lot better than I would have done had I not done this kind of coming on for 9 years of beneficial work, kind of nourishing myself across the board in all sorts of, in terms of the stress in my life, in terms of my sleep, in terms of the way I move, the way I eat, the way I kind of invite interactions into my life, all of those things, the way I connect with nature, all of it is part of kind of nutrient density across all of those areas is basically what I'm looking for always.
Your body, I hesitate. I mean, I'll use the term, your body threw it off.
Yeah.
You were, I mean, it still affected you. It still hit you, but not nearly as bad as it probably would have been.
No, and it's not, and it's going to clear up completely. It's just the very, very tail end of it that I'm still left with, and I'm confident at this point that it's going to be completely gone. And I don't think that would have been the case had I not set myself up this well, because I'm also at this point in my life in perimenopause as well. So there's all kinds of stuff going on, and I'm weathering all of it so much better than I ever could have done if this had all happened, 10 years ago.
So you're aging in reverse.
Kind of at the moment, yeah.
It's as a person who feels like, I mean, I feel like I've aged in reverse as well.
Yeah, you know what
The
it's
only
like.
difference is you're going to turn 50, I'm going to turn 66. And
Mm,
you say you feel like you're in your 20s, I feel like I'm in my 30s. Okay.
mm.
Yes, I understand what you're talking about. And the interesting part, while my story is different than yours, I hear a lot of similarities. Um, when you first found out you had MS, you made the statement it didn't come as a surprise, or
Mm.
as much of a surprise. What went through your mind when did you have thoughts of wanting to just give up?
Interestingly, I didn't. And and I'm speaking as somebody who, as a child, I would have described myself as a very anxious person
Mhm.
and very kind of, a lot of the people who've known me for that long would have said that I was quite pessimistic as a kid. But actually, I've sort of evolved over the years, and I think I describe where I'm at in adulthood more as kind of realistic optimism. So I liked to have a plan for the worst case scenario, but I never actually really thought that the worst case scenario was what was going to play out. I just wanted to kind of have thought about it just in case, but I never really kind of went fully into, oh God, this is, everything is over. There are all of these doors closing now. There was a process of kind of an element of grieving for the future that I had thought I was maybe going to have. Um, but it wasn't at, to the exclusion of all future joy.
Well, you made a statement to me before we started recording. Something along the effect that you realized it would serve you no purpose.
Assuming that the worst case scenario was what was going to happen would give me nothing. I felt that even more strongly in a situation where I was dealing with a very significant health situation. Um, is that kind of, I was in a position at the time where I had lost the use of my hand for quite a long time, and it was my dominant hand, so it was quite a serious problem. And it was also, MS is a condition that attacks the brain and the spinal cord, so the symptoms can be really varied, and you never quite know what you're going to wake up with. Um, so I could have just gone into a spiral of kind of like, oh, this is awful, and this might happen and that might happen, and I could end up being unable to walk. I could end up with vision problems. I could end up losing this, and this. But I just thought that I did kind of acknowledge that those thoughts were there, but they didn't take the mic at the front of the stage. They were just kind of like, okay, that exists as a possibility, but I'm going to work on the basis that that's not where I'm headed.
And this was all, what, almost 15 years ago?
Yeah, so it's a long time now. And even in the beginning, I really didn't assume the worst. I did consider the worst, but I didn't. I worried more honestly about what other people, how my family and other people were going to struggle with the whole thing. It's um it's difficult to be the person who has to say that to someone like, oh, I've got this kind of new piece of information. There you go.
I've got this. You better be nice to me. Kind of thing. Um, so my story is weight loss. Your story is autoimmune
Mm,
diseases, but they have a lot of similarities in that the power of a nutrient dense diet and the power of getting some moderate exercise. In your case, I think you said you like to go out and walk outside in nature.
yes.
I'm sitting here at the desk right now. It's 9:30 in the morning and I can hear the birds chirping outside my window.
There are birds right outside my window too.
Yeah. And it, so can you tell people what you mean by a nutrient dense diet?
Yeah, so it's just a different lens to look at. It was something that in my sort of pre-MS life, I hadn't ever really thought about. I didn't understand how even the macronutrients, the big categories, like what foods have protein in, what, fat's more easy to identify, but where are carbohydrates coming from? How does all this stuff balance out? I just didn't really have an awareness of that. And I definitely didn't have just the sort of lowest level of understanding that variety is of benefit always. And that having, if you love apples, just switching to a different variety of apple and eating whatever's in season is going to give your body a different nutrient profile. And so just kind of doing simple things like that and kind of thinking, well, this is what I'm going to eat for dinner. How can I punch up the nutrient density? How can I maximize the nutrients that I'm getting per calorie, basically? So things like adding in herbs and spices, or switching out varieties of stuff, or going for, what is the most nutrient dense, protein that I could be eating for this meal. Kind of whatever element of it we're thinking about. It's just an amazing lens to look at food because there are so many kind of small, simple things we can do that makes it nutritionally different to the way that it would be if we just went with the path of least resistance and what's the easiest.
But you had a mindset shift in your eating habits.
Enormous, because I'd never really, I mean, as a kid, I was a really picky eater. And I had a lot of anxiety around food, and I kind of had boxed myself into quite a small corner. Um, with what I was comfortable with. And so getting to the point where I actually thought, you know what, the most important thing about what I'm eating is what fuel is in there that my body can utilize.
That's what I tell people. I tell people we have forgotten what the purpose of the food we eat is. The purpose of the food we eat is to fuel our bodies.
And
That,
every
that
reaction that's going on in the body all the time needs all of these different things that we can be providing. And it's not the only, that doesn't mean you can't enjoy food. I
that was
love the
going to
way
be the
I
next.
eat.
The primary purpose is fuel.
Yeah.
When we eat, when we forget the fuel part and we eat just because it makes us feel good, or we do it for social aspects or whatever, that's when we can go off the rails and we can do something bad. What I say, like you just said, remember the primary purpose is to fuel your body. Now, with all that said and done, if you can fuel your body with something that you enjoy eating, by all means, enjoy your food.
Yeah.
But
And it's
don't eat just because you're looking for enjoyment.
no, and it's about kind of sometimes it's about just being more mindful because we live in a food environment
Oh, yes.
that is not supportive of nutrient density as the main focus. It's our food environment that we've created for ourselves is convenience is the main focus. It's like what is easy and what do you want that's going to give you the most pleasure in this immediate moment.
And that is the issue right there. What is going to give us the most pleasure in this immediate moment?
Mm.
It's shifting in your mind and realizing that sometimes when you're going for the short-term pleasure, you're hurting your long term.
Yeah, so it's like I always think of eating well is like a beautiful kindness and a gift to your future self because your future body is built with and fueled by the food that you're eating now. So, what a glorious thing to be able to do for you next week, next month, next year is to give it something great to work with.
Absolutely. It'll be so much better and you'll be so much happier. And let me ask you about another aspect. When you got this diagnosis, did you ever say, why me? Why did this happen to me?
I don't think I really did. And I think that comes from having had my why me when I was a lot younger, probably.
Okay.
Because I think I probably worked through some of those feelings when I was because when I was a teenager, I used to make jokes about how I'm just stuck in the body of an 80-year-old because I was in pain and I was just sort of resigned to the fact that my body was just didn't really work very well and that was that. And I didn't and I did kind of just think, oh, I had my exasperation, I think, then, and I got through it and had reached a point where I was actually thinking, maybe I'm not stuck with this. Maybe there's something that I can do about it that I don't need a prescription or permission or anything. Maybe there's stuff I can do that's only got side benefits, no nasty side effects, that is all totally within my control.
So you asked yourself, you said to yourself, this is the situation. I'm not going to blame anybody for it. I'm not going to say anyone else is responsible. And you're just going to figure out what needs to be done and you're going to go do it.
Yeah, and it did take me a little while to get to the point where I was
Of
prepared
course.
to when I first had my it was sort of 4 years between when I got my diagnosis and when I was ready to I had done some things. I'd left my job. That was quite a big change because I loved teaching. It was, the bit where you're actually teaching was great. The admin I wasn't in love with.
Mhm. I understand.
Um, but it's the the sort of the interim was where I was kind of like, right, if I've jettisoned the biggest source of stress and I just keep putting one foot in front of the other, then maybe it will all be okay. But then it was that conversation with my consultant that kind of gave me a bit of a shake. And I was like, no, actually, this isn't going to cut it. My body is having a hard time. And so I need to work out how to be really, really nice to it.
So once you were ready, did you make a decision pretty quickly once you were ready?
Yes. And I am somebody who um once I've decided, I I'm pretty stubborn. I can I can be
Ah,
very
no way. No.
um or determined, depending on the lens that we're looking at it through. But I once I've decided I'm going to do something, then I am pretty good at kind of keeping going on that path as long as I still believe that this is the right kind of way to be going. Um, and I've eased up a little bit in that respect over the years, and I've learned a sort of I've pushed myself less hard. There was a time there at the beginning where I wasn't having any fun because I was very tunnel vision focused on what are the choices that I need to make that are going to maximize the benefit to my health. And so I sort of forgot that joy needed to be in the mix as well. I was very focused on the practical things that I needed to do. So I'm at a better place now where it's much more kind of looking at everything and where, I can be a bit more flexible in my thinking.
You're more balanced.
Yeah.
You know, along the way, did you ever, I assume you did some things right, and I assume you made some mistakes along the way while you were learning. Am I
Oh,
correct?
yeah.
Did you ever want to beat yourself upside the head when you made a mistake? Or did you just say, okay, I messed up. Let's do it better next time and keep going?
At the time, I think early on, particularly when I made some quite big mistakes at the beginning, I did beat myself up about it. But I not. not to a point that was going to really kind of dig me into a hole where I felt like I was stuck. And I kind of had the seeds of the attitude I have now, which is the attitude that I always had when I was a teacher. It's like if you make a mistake, that's where the learning happens. That's what I used to say to the kids in my class. It's like if you never get anything wrong, then you're not learning anything because you're just doing things you already know how to do.
So
So
you learned
growth,
that. Yeah, that helped you.
yeah, growth comes in. I always used to say to them, like, the mistakes are juicy. Let's see what we can, if anybody's made a mistake, let's all have a look at it and see what we can learn from it. And that's very much the way that I approach things now and with my clients as well. It's like, look, if things didn't go according to plan, there's always going to be useful information in there somewhere.
I assume you've heard the term post-traumatic stress.
Yes.
Have you ever heard the term post-traumatic growth?
Ah, I haven't.
Okay. It suggests that sometimes when you're experienced a trauma, which I would call what you went through a trauma, you know,
Mm,
it wasn't somebody hitting you over the head with a hammer, but it was a trauma.
mm.
And you, as a result of going through that trauma, you grew into,
Yeah,
into something greater than you were before.
I think that's very true. And I don't sort of, it's not a throwaway comment to, there are a lot of conversations where it can sound very glib to say that something that is very difficult is actually a blessing in disguise kind of thing. And it, but so I wouldn't ever kind of say it in that way, but I do really wholeheartedly believe that I would not change any of the things that have happened to me to get me to where I am now, because where I am now, I'm going to age the best that I possibly can, which wouldn't have happened had I not been on this wiggly, windy path to get here. But also, my children have seen what I've done. And so, any health challenge that they ever encounter, they will know that it is possible to do something and that it's not just this huge weight that you have to carry for the rest of your life. You can take positive action and actually kind of have some control over where you're headed. It's not all decided for you.
Would it surprise you if I told you I feel the same way about my weight loss journey that I went through?
No,
Well,
that makes sense.
well, I went through things that I would not wish on anybody.
Mm,
I don't regret having gone through them because those
mm,
experiences taught me what I know now,
mm.
made me into the person I am today, and I happen to like the person I am today.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Is when there's a there's a piece about that relationship with ourselves that is really critical to be vibrantly healthy, genuinely. And it is possible to be vibrantly healthy, even in a situation like mine where I've got multiple incurable conditions. I can still have vitality and joy in my life. And the relationship I have with myself and the person that I truly am is absolutely foundational to that.
Do you have to take a lot of prescription medication?
Very little. I do
So,
take
go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I do take thyroid medication because my thyroid can't get by itself. But and a little bit of hormone replacement therapy to kind of take the edges off some of the fluctuations in terms of menopause because the the hormones can go really quite dramatically up and down, and that can be quite risky with autoimmune conditions. So the idea is just to kind of blunt the most dramatic peaks and troughs on that.
I understand. I assume that the amount of medication you take now is nothing like what you took when you first got sick.
No, it's changed quite dramatically over the years, and there are certain things that I know really positively feed into because everything about the way that I live my life helps my body to get the maximum benefit from any medication that I do need. So it's, I'm always trying to remove barriers that might be in the way of, because my body is, like I said, having a tough time. Even when I'm doing all of the things, my body has a level of physical stress because of my autoimmune diseases. So it's my job to kind of get out of its way everywhere that I can and try and help it to make all of the things that it's trying to do as easy as possible.
You mentioned barriers. To me, I like to say barriers are doorways inviting you to open them and walk through.
Mm, yeah,
That, obstacles are doorways. And that's what you've done.
yeah,
And that's very admirable. So talking about walking, do you walk every day?
I do. I do go for, I've structured my day on purpose so that I go for a walk in the morning because I've got a young daughter, so I take her to school in the morning. And I'm lucky that I live, I mean, it's not entirely luck because we did buy our house on purpose, but we have a park that's
Still,
very
it's
close to
still,
our
it's
house.
luck. It's still, it's lucky.
Yeah, well, I'm fortunate to be in a position to live this close to a green space. So I go for a walk in the park every day, and I don't start my working day until I've done that. Um, and then I feed walking into my day aside from that as well, because it's one of those things where it's like if I can sprinkle little bits of walking in, even while I'm in my house, this is my office, which is on the top floor. It's a loft conversion in my house. So the downstairs is 2 flights of stairs away from here. So I can deliberately design my day so that I'm going up and downstairs multiple times in the day because I don't want to be sitting still all day long.
No, not good for you. You made
No.
me, you made me laugh when you said you're fortunate to be living right next to a green space. I'm here in Arizona in the desert, and
Mhm.
I'm fortunate to live right next to a brown space.
Yeah, it's nature, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it absolutely is nature. I walk outside every day.
Yeah.
I've been doing it pretty much, other than 3 days when I was sick, I've been doing it every day for 12 years.
Yeah, I think I did it. I did it every day when I was pregnant with my daughter, even in the absolutely lashing rain. I'm one of the only people who doesn't have a dog who is still there in the park, even in horrendous weather, because I'm going for me. I'm not going because I've got the dog and the dog needs a walk. I'm going because I need a walk.
Yes, and besides, you can play with other people. You can play with other people's dogs.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, a lot less effort and a lot less work. As we go to end this, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think it can feel scary, the idea of kind of going from a life that isn't focused on health. We can get that tangled up with our identity and we start to kind of define ourselves as somebody who doesn't do X, Y, and Z. And I think, oh, but I'm not the kind of person who goes to the gym. I'm not the kind of person who goes for a walk. I'm not the kind of person who, I'm allergic to walking, whatever it is that people tell themselves. And I think it's just allowing the key for me is allowing yourself to just do a little bit and play. Like do a little experiment with it and see what happens. You don't have to commit to doing X thing every day for the rest of your life. You can just go for a 10-minute walk you can start with every morning for a week. Or even if you can say to yourself, if I get to the end of the week and I've done it 3 days out of 7, then that will be a win because the week before it was 0. So
Whatever.
it's
The point
yeah,
is you're doing it. And
yeah,
when I started walking 16 years ago, it was difficult for me to walk more than a block or two.
yeah.
Now I walk miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles.
Because you didn't give up then when it was
Yeah,
difficult.
yeah, every day. So I understand completely.
Mm,
Thank you very much. This is very inspiring and
thank
very
you for
good
having
stuff.
me.
Thank you.